Hey everybody.
Hello.
Welcome back to the Chosen Chat. Is that what we're calling
I love
this?
it. Let's do it.
All right,
Chosen
good.
Chat.
My name is Justin.
I'm Kerri.
And we are recording a conversation about the TV show The Chosen, going episode by episode. And we're doing these conversations really for the people of One Life Church, which is in Concord, North Carolina, for our 242 groups. So if you are in one of our 242 groups, awesome, great stuff. If you are a part of another church and you've just, found this content, found these conversations, welcome. Feel free to use these in your groups or with your family, with your friends. And we hope and pray that they will help you have good conversations about who God is and what God is up to in your life. So today we are going to look at episode 2. So the first question that we are asking, we're going to ask a few questions. The first question is, and all those questions are in the description below, and we'll also include some scripture references for each episode. So the first question I want to ask you, Kerri, is what part of this episode on the Shabbat really grabbed your attention? What jumped out and you wanted to hit the pause button as you were watching? Oh. You wanted to take notes on it. What was the part that stood out to you?
It's so funny. If you would have asked me this 15 minutes ago, I would have had a different answer. Even like the first time I saw it. For me, it is honestly the scene with Zahara and Nicodemus. As a person that I've been in church my whole life, I've gone to Sunday morning service since I was 2 weeks old. It can begin to feel routine. And the fact that Nicodemus is coming in and Zohara's like, you got to do Shabbat. And he's like, but I got to do this some other thing. She's like, just get through it. It'll be fine. And then I was thinking about what Mary was doing and how excited she was. And I was like, I get that. Of it just becoming routine sometimes and wanting that fire that new believers, that people like Mary have.
Yeah, that's great. For me, I think it was the opening scene that grabbed a hold of my attention right away. I mean, I feel like this episode was pretty short. I think it was like 35 minutes long. And there were so many things jam-packed in those 35 minutes. I thought it was beautiful, the conversations and the imagery of the Shabbat. But that first episode, which I'm assuming they're wanting it to predate Jesus, would that be accurate when the families are around?
Yeah, I want to say there's a date at the bottom.
Okay, I missed that date.
Yeah, it's Old Testament times.
Okay, Old Testament. But what stood out to me was the interactions between the kids and their parents, and the kids being a part of the Shabbat meal, and the parents speaking truth over the kids. Like, it was just really beautiful. And I paused it because I wanted to make a mental note of that type of intentional parenting. And one of the things that we have, a goal that we have here at One Life, is to equip, empower, and encourage our parents to disciple their kids. Because we only have access to these kids for a couple hours, a Sunday, a week. Whereas you as parents, if you're a parent, you have access to your kids all the time. And it's really your responsibility as a parent to disciple your children in the way of Jesus. And that doesn't happen accidentally. And I think that's what was so beautiful about that first scene. I'm going to ask a question that I didn't ask about the first episode, and we're going to add this into our list of questions. And that is, which character did you resonate with the most in this episode? So which character was like, man, I feel like that character draws me in?
Nicodemus.
Nicodemus,
and just how I think one of my favorite things about The Chosen is how it humanizes the Pharisees, and how it's not that they were these bad guys that just wanted to kill Jesus. Nicodemus really, really wanted to know the truth, and they rejoiced in the miracles, and how you have it written down where he's like, he seeks no credit for his miracles.
Yeah.
He's talking to Mary, like, what?
No credit.
And just this journey that Nicodemus is about to go on, I really resonate with that. I have a really deep longing for truth, and having to go through throwing off tradition to seek out the truth. Like, I really appreciated that journey of his.
I think for me, it's Simon and Eden's conversation about working on the Shabbat. Oh gosh, it's so convicting because that's my wife. Like, the number of times that I have set aside a Sabbath and then decided to work on my Sabbath, and Nicole will say, "Really? Are you gonna work on your Sabbath?" And she's doing it with grace and truth. Like, she's doing it because she loves me and she knows that that's what's best for me. And she also knows that that's what the Lord commands, that we would have a Sabbath day. But she's also doing it with a lot of truth that, like, hey, this is what you have set up for yourself. So that you can be a healthier version of yourself, a healthier pastor, a healthier husband, a healthier father, all those things. Like, are you going to go back on what you have said you want to do? And so that was another one of those, like, oh my gosh, yes, I've been in Simon's shoes. And as we go through the episodes, I feel like I've listened to a little bit of Dallas Jenkins' story and his story leading up to making The Chosen. I feel like he's writing himself into Simon.
Yeah. Oh, I can't say too much because I already told you I want to talk about Simon, not the next one, but the one after.
Episode 4.
Episode 4. Yes, there's so much.
But it's possible that Dallas Jenkins also knows my life and is writing me into the story. And because so much of Simon, I resonate with. I feel that. So, all right, the next question is, what is the good news? Not just from one specific scene, but from this episode. And this is what I mean by good news. Like, where is God speaking to you? What word of grace is he speaking over you or reminding you of from this episode?
Oh, you can get it back.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about how the theme of hospitality that is running through this episode, and how Zohara and Nicodemus, they're inviting the religious elites to the Shabbat dinner, and it's just going through emotions. And then thinking about Mary and how she's doing it out of excitement and love and passion, and the people that she brings in, Barnaby, who's lame, and Shula, blind, and then she brings in James and Thaddeus, who are almost nobodies in the Bible.
I don't even know if they know Mary.
They don't. Yeah, it says like the teacher tells us, our rabbi told us to show up here.
So it's the outcast, it's the marginalized, it's the stranger that finds their way to that table.
And that was the key to the joy.
Oh,
hospitality is the key. Opening your heart to people that you wouldn't typically be with.
Yeah, so this kind of back and forth on the Shabbat meal and the Shabbat table between Nicodemus and the religious leaders, and Nicodemus being the one that's leading that Shabbat, and then Mary preparing her table for the Shabbat and leading that, and then Jesus comes and she's like, no, you've got to do this, and Jesus says to her, no, this is your home and I would love for you to do this. And then that for me, like, there's so many connections, I think, with the first opening scene of the parents discipling their children. And then Mary at one point says to a group of women, I'm going to try. Like, they're like, are you excited about this? Are you ready for this? And she's like, I'm going to try, because she's never done it before.
Right.
But she's going to try. And Jesus is saying, I want you to do this. There's just this empowerment. We call it the empowerment of the saints, but like, it doesn't have to be the pastor. It doesn't have to be the rabbi. No. It doesn't have to be the person that knows the most, that leads us and disciples us. We all have the Holy Spirit in us, and Jesus, like, just give it a shot.
Exactly. We don't have to worry about doing it right or perfect.
Yeah. So that was just really good news to me, and a good reminder for me of something that I want to continue to create spaces for people to be able to do that at their own table, lead groups, do that in their groups of friends, but also like in our groups that we lead, like creating space for other people to just give it a shot.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So that's such good news. Why is it, do you think, hard for you to believe that good news of getting it back? Like, what makes it difficult to believe that you can return to that joy?
Yeah, I think it's because there's just such a bit, I don't want to say that there's something wrong with being somebody that's been faithful your whole life at all, but it is hard to not be able to pinpoint that I was one way and now I was different.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I love following Nicodemus's journey that we're going to see throughout this whole thing.
I think the best line of this episode was when Mary runs into Nicodemus again, and what does she say here? She says, I was one way, but now I'm different, and everything that happened in between was him. Yeah. That is that's such good news. But for those of us that have been doing this for a while, that have been following Jesus for a while, I think sometimes we forget that I was once lost and now I'm found. I think for some of us who grew up in this and were born into this, we actually don't remember that we were born lost. Right. We are in this flesh suit. We are human. So that means that we were born into a sinful world, which we were lost and we were found. And everything that has happened in between is because of him. Yeah. And that we need to be reminded of that to bring us back to that joy, right? Absolutely. For Mary, it was so fresh. For us, it's really tough to remember that. You know, it's like we've been wandering around in the desert for 40 years and we've forgotten. It's so true. Yeah. So I think for me, what makes it difficult for me to believe the good news of empowerment is that I think in my estimation, in our world, there's a lot of expectation that there's an expert sitting at the table. And so I place that on myself. I place it on other people. And I mean, it is good to have someone in the circle that can help us pursue truth. But it's very hard for me to remember that Jesus empowered a ragtag group of people. Yeah. You know? And man, it's just really tough for me to remember that. And I wish it wasn't. Honestly, I wish that it was easier for me to be reminded of that. But I feel like there's a pressure that comes with needing to be the expert. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And we have a culture that is just focused on authority. Like we need to find who's the authority and ask that person. And that has trickled down to church.
And and authority is good, but the authority wants to empower others to rise to the top, you know, like to grow and learn and lead. Yep. Like that's the kind of authority that we want to take hold of.
So does that mean that the next time, because this happens to me too, so I know it happens to you, at the family dinner, when you're the default prayer, you're going to be like, you do it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there is some of that. Like it happens all the time. Yeah. But I think in my 242 group, like, you know, I want to empower the other guys in my group. I want that to be true of all of our 242 groups. To empower the people in our group to lead the conversations, to pray over our group, you know, like to host the meetings that we have. So there's a lot of opportunities for that. Absolutely. We do that well, I think, at One Life with the people that we invite to the stage, like invite on the platform. It's not just you and I. And Daniel does this in the worship leaders, like the people that have opportunity to have a voice from the platform to lead our church in worship is an empowerment of the church, not just one person. Yeah. All right, last question, and then we'll finish up, and that is, what is your action step? Because discipleship is hearing the words of God, but then living it. I mean, we got to have action to it if it's going to be discipleship in the way of Jesus. Or we'll just be fools, as Jesus says in Matthew 7. Like, you heard my words, but you didn't do anything with it. We don't want to be fools, so what is the action step here for you that is like comes out of the good news that you experienced in this episode?
You know, I think I might try a spiritual practice that I've never done before.
Okay.
Or at least haven't done in a long, long time. Because, you know, you kind of get stuck in the same ones. But you know what I'm going to do? And I'm being completely sincere about this. We have a labyrinth in Mooresville, where I live, just down the street from us, since I'm an Episcopal church, and anybody can go walk it at any time. A labyrinth is kind of a prayer trail that is walking through. And I haven't done one of those in a really long time. And I think I'm going to go do that.
That's awesome. That's good stuff.
How about you?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing is that I want to be intentional with my kids. So I have 2 teenagers, and I want to be super intentional about asking them questions about their faith. They've both given them their lives to Jesus, but like I want to be more intentional in that because I want to empower them over the next few years to have a seat at the table, to have a voice at the table. And so I think that first opening scene was really powerful for me and convicting, and I want to be more intentional in the way that I disciple my children.
I love it.
All right, that's it. So those are the questions. They'll all be in the description below. We hope that this leads to some fantastic conversations in your groups, with your family, around your kitchen table. And hear the good news that God has for you, and then go and live it out. We'll be back with episode 3 next week. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.